I grew up with martial arts as my background. We had gotten a contracting job to teach special forces, hand-to-hand combat. So that is where we came from. That's the most recent. I've got my doctorate in business, and I'm a master at Kung Fu, Tai Chi, and I teach now Qigong and Tai Chi to elderly at a retirement home. My mom and dad divorced when I was 9. That's when it was finalized, but he left when I was 8. He was already teaching back then, and he owned he co-owned a restaurant bar in San Francisco. So I was born and raised in San Francisco during the time of the Triad Wars. I don't think the Triad Wars are so prevalent nowadays, so our family was very involved. We'll put it that way. When my dad left, I had to leave home. My name was changed schools, changed everything, and had no contact with either parent for an entire year until everything subsided. It started, like I said, at the age of 8 and went through 9. They made me repeat 4th grade and skip 5th grade. That was part of the identity change. And I was just like, what is going on? So once I got back to school, my grades went to 0. I was having a really hard time catching up. So I was young, but growing up, I got to the point where I was sick and tired of everybody telling me what I had to do. And I became somewhat of a rebel by the time I got to high school. So as far as being influenced by societal changes, yeah, they made me do it. I didn't have a choice. You will act differently. You will not do this. You will not do that. You will not talk about your past. You don't exist. We're erasing you. But once I got back to normal again, then I got back to me again. But by then, I pretty much raised myself. My mother was always out. She had a job, 2 jobs that she worked always 7 days a week, and she was always out at night. So I raised myself basically. Once I married Mark, he was in special forces. My dad lives in a military community, so that's where we met. And then we had our kids. We have 2 kids, Eric and Corey, and they're both in their 30s. And we got transferred to Clarksville, Tennessee, which is also another military community. And we've taught our children everything that we could of everything that we know, and hopefully they've learned. The first birth, first pregnancy, I put on 40 pounds in just the last few months. It's supposed to be a gradual process, but I did it really fast. It did put it activated something that I learned was called sciatica. I had back problems for a while. It took me an entire year to lose the weight just to get back to weight, let alone getting into any kind of shape. So for me, it was a struggle. That was the first time. The second time, I knew better. So I was already working out. I was working out like a fiend, and then I found out I was pregnant. But the doctor said, I can continue what I'm doing, don't increase anything, just continue. So by the time I was ready to give birth to her, because I was sick and threw up a lot the first portion of it, I actually essentially gained only 11 pounds. So I lost like 4 or 5 pounds at first, and then I gained it. But the stomach, that's number 1. That was the big one, the stomach. Stretch marks were hellacious, and I could never, no matter what I did, like you said, no matter what I did, it wouldn't go down. It was this permanent mummy pouch. It's there. I earned it. I've learned to accept it and embrace that. The other thing that I couldn't embrace was up here. The breasts never regain their elasticity. They kind of flop around. And I was told they looked like 2 tennis balls hanging at the bottoms of a couple of tube socks. So that's what I got left with. That's what I wanted to fix more than anything. I don't mind the stomach so much, but the tube socks have to go. I tried to get them fixed, went to one doctor, and he says, yes, we call this a Snoopy, I don't know, a Snoopy something. Anyways, I was like, all right, can you fix it? Yes, he says he can fix it. And he couldn't fix it. He did the surgery, a breast augmentation, and tried to fix it all, change the shape. He didn't do a darn thing. Yeah, it still looked just as bad, but bigger. And eventually, over time, it started to kind of spread. So instead of being this way, they started spreading out this way to the side. And even though I was what I thought in the best shape possible, like you say, looking in the mirror, I'm looking at the whole thing, no matter what I put on, dress, shirt, whatever, I thought I looked fat because it was a roll. Kind of like when large women have rolls, I had a roll. So I went to another doctor. And this was about, I want to say 10 or 15 years later, and asked if he could fix it. And he said, yeah, he could fix it. He couldn't fix it. By the time I found Dr. Burgdorf, it wasn't because I was looking to fix anything. I actually was, I had put on a whole lot of weight because I had, if anybody knows, when you go to graduate school, you have no time to work out, especially when you have kids at home. And so all of everything went out the window. I'd put on a bunch of weight, and all of this just, it just went crazy. It went further out this way, and all of the saline actually was leaking out. So when I called Chris at Dr. Burgdorf's office, I said, I'm at the point now where I'm having to stuff my bra like a 12-year-old. And, you know, and it was a joke, you know, but it wasn't, because I actually was stuffing my bra like a 12-year-old. And so I got to go in and see him, and I told him I have this problem with what us girls call side boob, really bad. And on top of the fact that I still had leftover Snoopy syndrome, which made me look like I had orangutan boobies. So I'm running around with orangutan boobs. You know, help. I was actually, what's the word? I was actually intimidated with Dr. Burgdorf's ad because I was afraid to even call. The first thing that comes to mind is cha-ching, is money. And the reason why is because, you know, a published author, okay? And I'm thinking, all right, published author. And then, oh, he's been on the doctor's show. And so this guy's been around. He's well known enough throughout his own you know, plastic surgery community and gotten awards and things like that. And even though that's what I wanted, that is what scared me, because I thought that that would put me out of his range, basically is what I was thinking. I was looking at some of the others, and my husband convinced me to call. He says, how can he stay in business if he cannot be competitive? You need to give him a call. And actually, Mark was the one that saw him first, and he says, call him. And but his website was so nice, and you know, he had a lot of before and after pictures that showed that, of course, he has a lot of experience. But he did have to be competitive with those in the surrounding areas. And so I thought, okay, well, the worst thing I can say is, well, sorry, I'm going to go with someone else, you know. So I did, but I called and talked to Chris, and she gave me the whole rundown. And so I thought, all right, well, you know, I'll just come in for a consult and see how that goes. I talked to Andrea, and she was fantastic. And then I was kind of intimidated even to meet him, because I thought, well, he's probably only doing, you know, big movie stars and music people and, you know, millionaires. He was a really nice guy. He was a regular guy. He's got a family. He's got kids. You know, this is just what he does, and he does awesome work. His staff, I totally trust his staff. You know, there's just a really nice, down-to-earth guy. As far as pricing goes, he's competitively priced, which that really shocked me a lot. He's not anywhere any different in pricing, or I don't know what the other doctors offer in the way of how extensive a surgery that I went through. But just at the very beginning, the first time I talked to Chris on the phone, when she answered, she told me everything, and she says, well, come on in, and you know, and you can talk to somebody, and we'll get you set up if you want. And they didn't make me feel pressured at all. But when I got the price from Andrea, I was just thinking, oh my gosh, you know, look at this compared to that, and this person in this little podunk town is charging the same price. You know, I'm going to go with the guy who's got his face splashed all over, you know, who wrote the books, who's been on TV, and who seems to, his location is perfect to serve, you know, the country music community, all of those people too. So I'm thinking, so he must have great experience, you know. So his price really didn't even come into the picture after I found out that he was competitive. I started out, first of all, as a 12-year-old, wishing I had boobs like my mom. You know, and I'd ask her, when am I going to have boobs like you? Oh, when you grow up, honey, when you grow up. And I grew up. And it's like, when am I going to have boobs like you? I'm already grown up. Oh, after you have babies, they'll get bigger. It's natural for women's breasts to get bigger. And okay, yeah, but they just lost shape is what happened. They didn't get any bigger. I was wearing originally a 34B. And all it did was get to be a 34B. It was awful. And yeah, so it never did get to be her size until I tried to get them fixed, and it was still just a mess. I thought that maybe I'm just not a good candidate for this type of surgery. I thought that plastic surgery could be for anybody, but evidently they must be misleading the public and just trying to steal people's money. Oh yeah, we can fix you, we can do this and we can do that, but no, you can't. And the first two doctors I went to, they couldn't. Now, Dr. Burgdorf was faced with an immense surgery with me. As far as, to me, it was immense. Maybe not to him, but he said he really could fix it, and he really did. And what he did was quite extensive, having to follow up, fixing two other doctors' mistakes. The bottom line is, I'm still in good shape, and I'm healthy. That's what's important. But as far as health of my mind, I needed to get this done. I had this conversation with my daughter about the Bella Med injections, the new filler that Dr. Burgdorf offers, and she says, well, what did your breasts do for your confidence? And I said, well, way better. You know, I feel like, you know, I stand up straighter, I stick my chest out, and I'm like, yeah, you know. I feel better. I'm sexier. Yeah, so my husband is more supportive, and he notices these things. It's a whole behavioral thing more than just the physicality of it. These are now perfect. He says, now they look like something out of a magazine. They really look perfect, yes. But that's not all of it, okay? The funny thing is that it's not just a physical thing like I curl my hair. You know, oh yeah, that's nice, you curl your hair, big deal. But when a woman does something like curls her hair, or she wears makeup, or she puts on certain clothing, or has, you know, breast work done, or any kind of work done, it changes her to the core. I feel more confident in the way that I used to always, I don't know if I think a lot of women go through this. When they raise their families as young women, and they live with their husbands, everything that a woman does is for their family and not for themselves. And that's really common, I think. They lose themselves in the family. So they don't, even when it came to decision making, it was like, well, what do you want to eat? What do you want to eat? You know, or even to go out to a restaurant, that was a big ordeal because I would never make that decision. It was always because I wanted to make somebody else happy. And finally now, it's kind of like, well, I feel like this. Let's go here. Let's do that. And, you know, and I'm the one that will initiate any conversation with somebody about anything. Although I've always been a pretty bold person and very talkative, and I used to be an extreme extrovert as a younger person until I had a family. Then everything was just them. But now that they're all gone, grown up, moved away and everything, and, you know, I was still struggling with that. But once I got this done, then it's like, I'm done dilly-dallying around. I'm not going to be wishy-washy anymore. This is how it's going to be. You know, it's that kind of confidence that I see in myself. Even after going through this twice, I didn't feel that inward feeling at all. I wasn't having any of that confidence. In fact, it took it down even more because it was done improperly or wrong, and I had a bad result. I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting to feel like this. So, yeah, it is definitely a confidence builder. My daughter says the same thing. She says she's noticed it too, the behavior. You know, I've always been the one to say I can do it myself, because that's how I grew up. I did do it all myself. And this is the first time I've come across a doctor who actually can help, for real. And it's not just, like I said, not just an outward physical help, because it actually builds confidence. It's a whole inward, how you see yourself, how I see myself, how you see me. Dr. Burgdorf is an artist. This is just what he does, and he does awesome work. His staff, I totally trust his staff. You know, there's just a really nice, down-to-earth guy. With Dr. Burgdorf, it's a continuous follow-up, and yeah, it is a pain to drive all the way. You know, I mean, it's only an hour, but still, it is a pain to drive all the way into Nashville. But it's worth it for the quality of care and service and the camaraderie that I get with his other staff members. I mean, they are all fantastic.